Free.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody. Welcome to the IATA media briefing. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to announce the results of the latest IATA Global Passenger Survey, a survey that we do every year. Today I'm joined with Nick Careen, our Senior Vice President of Operations, Safety and Security, who'll be giving an overview of the results. We then have Louise, Head of Customer Experience and Facilitation, just to explain what we're doing in the area of biometrics to enhance the passenger experience. And there'll be a short speech by Yanik, Hoyles, Director of Distribution, just to explain what we're doing in the distribution section. So after the three speakers, we'll open the floor up to questions. So I'd now like to hand over to Nick, our Senior Vice President of Operations, Safety and Security.
Good day, everybody, and thanks for your patience for waiting. I apologize for the slight delay. Some technical difficulties here getting everything up and running. So as Catherine had mentioned, I'll run through some of the high-level survey results, and then we can have a update from Louise and Yanik, and then we'll get into hopefully some questions. So I think I have control of these.
Kelly, please too. Nick.
Okay, Calliope is changing. All right, that's good. So in terms of satisfaction, I guess if you were to look at it with a glass half empty, we did see a drop from 2021 to 2022. Having said that, overall satisfaction, and this is basically what the question is being asked, are you satisfied with what you're receiving? And 80% is a healthy number. Obviously, when we get into the details in terms of where our opportunities are best served, that will become clearer to us. But a slight drop from 2021, but still a very overall satisfactory number in terms of general satisfaction in the process. When we get into the 12 touch points that we survey upon in terms of what the satisfaction rates or where the areas that our customers are most satisfied, they tend to be in the booking area, searching for travel options, arriving at the airport, check-in, and of course, I think reaching destination, which would always be, I think, and any one of us who have traveled, feel that sort of relief, no matter what has happened to us during the course of the journey, that when we finally reach that destination, it's a pleasing experience. So they're not really surprising that these are the areas that we've invested heavily in, especially in the front part of the passenger process and at the end. But in terms of the sort of middle of the process is where most of the opportunities lie. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see where some of the areas that the customers have pointed out. So in terms of what stresses you when you travel, shouldn't really be a big surprise. Transferring is a challenge, and in the current environment, we have found ourselves in, and in some cases do find ourselves in. It's difficult. You look at border control and immigration. One only needs to look at what happened in COVID to really put some not have to think very long about what that has meant in terms of extra processing, especially manual. In terms of validation of your existing credentials and then your medical credentials on top of that. And then collection of baggage has always been an area where customers have been frustrated, mostly associated with time in general handling issues. But I will speak a little bit about baggage in a little bit more detail later. Not on the slide though, but I will go to the next one. But security is also an area that is one of dissatisfaction, and I highlight it only for the fact that of all the results of the question, what satisfies you the most, it's security compared to all other touch points on the passenger journey, and I think we all know why. Next slide. So convenience, and more convenience. I mean, I think we expect this in pretty much everything we do in our daily lives. So it's no real big surprise that it is something that we expect in the aviation processes as well. When you look at this, customers are really asking for some simple things. Would like to access all their information in one single location, and I think we can all relate to that. And travel facilitation, when it comes to sharing information, anything and possible. I may have some stats to back that up in terms of customers are willing to travel, willing to facilitate the travel journey by providing whatever information is required to do so in order for it to be seamless and contactless. That's even more important now after in a post-COVID environment. And then lastly, in terms of airport processes, looking for alternatives for checking in baggage. And I'll talk about that in a later slide. One question that we asked during the survey, which was a bit of a surprise to me, maybe a surprise to some of you as well, in terms of choices or the rationale behind choices that passengers make when it comes time to book a ticket. Proximity of an airport was number one. Price, which wouldn't surprise anybody, was number two. Availability of an airline, number three, which, with frequent flyer points and the point collection world that we find ourselves in, loyalty, etc. This is not a big surprise. And number four in this was length of time of travel. So it is a surprise that proximity was so important, but I guess with time being a constraint, and number four on the list, probably they go hand in hand. Again, convenience is being the main driver towards satisfaction when it comes to planning. Areas where customers are expecting improvements. I have an echo. Okay. 82% of passengers are satisfied when able to pick their preferred payment method. That sounds very simple, but it isn't always the case. And so more flexibility in terms of how a customer chooses to pay will go a long way in terms of improving satisfaction. Other areas of need of improvement: access to information, which I mentioned earlier, in a single place; clarity and transparency on the offer and content, beyond the schedule, beyond the price. What's the seat like? What are the amenities like? What's the airport like? What's the airline like? What type of aircraft is it? All these things are becoming more and more important in terms of customers' choice, and it's something that we need to embrace in terms of new distribution capabilities as we move forward. And lastly is the ease of seat selection. This is relatively new. As to why it's there, I think it has a lot to do with changes in passenger behavior, and also that ancillary impact that charging for seats has had in terms of selection and some of the complexities that are around it, especially when you talk about families, as just one example. We did ask a question this year in terms of CO2 offsetting. Why? I think it's not a surprise to anybody that we would want to understand this better, given the 2050 commitment that the industry has made in terms of net zero emissions. I guess what it may be a bit of a surprise that 80% don't offset carbon. And that's rationale as to why, the reasons behind why. About a third would say they didn't know there was an option. A quarter said basically they didn't want to. And then 18% said they didn't have an option at all. Behind that as well was price being number four in terms of why someone didn't choose it. So I think the majority of people are willing to offset, or say they are, but not the majority aren't doing it just yet. So it's an area that we definitely are going to need to put more emphasis on as we move forward towards our net zero goal. Not happy with immigration, as I've mentioned earlier, no surprise. 2 in 5 use it as a reason not to travel. And 65% said the main reason for that was complexity. What's the main driver from that? The fact that not one country could do one thing the same when it comes to managing how we did during the COVID period. It's already complex, and we've made it even more complex and more difficult, and was a main deterrent behind frustration, but as well as people discouraged or not encouraged to travel. So what are the answers? What are the opportunities to improve as we move forward? No surprise, technology always hits that list. But there are things that we're doing at the moment, and as mentioned, Yanik and Louise will expand on some of those in a few moments. But certain things are more prevalent than others. Visas are still a requirement, depending on where you're from and where you're going. The manual process just is time to retire. Online visas is the way to go. The majority of our customers would say so. In terms of data sharing, I think this is a pretty interesting slide, and the fact that 83% of our customers are willing to share information, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, the goal is to stop you, not to avoid having to use paper, to avoid having to use the passport, and anything that's required to provide in advance to allow for a better process at the airport. I think that's a telling number. And then biometrics, 1/3 have used it in their journey. And in the next slide, you'll see that specifically in terms of its acceptance, we're here. So next slide, please. 88% are satisfied with their biometric process when they've used it. Now that should say that says it all. 75% are eager to use biometrics instead of the paper processes or even mobile phone processes that we use today. So it's here. The appetite is there, and we have a great process in terms of travel to allow for it. It just needs some standards, which again, Louise will speak to shortly. So with the use of biometrics comes the caveat or the asterisk. Make sure you manage their data better, or keep it in mind as you develop these processes. And I think that's pretty similar in everything that we do today, not only in this industry but many others. But when consumers and customers look at this, they are concerned about data breaches. They are concerned about not knowing who the passenger's data is being shared with, and also not knowing how passenger data is being kept or stored. Legitimate questions that we need to be cognizant of as we design future processes and standards in this area. In terms of where assisting with off-airport, this is a question that we've asked for many years actually, and the requests remain relatively the same. Check-in is always something that there's a preference to do off-site, and by and large we are there with mobile check-in. However, if you're checking a bag, that's not possible, and I will talk about the desire for off-site check-in from a baggage perspective as well. Immigration procedures offline makes a lot of sense. We're not quite there yet. I thought that COVID maybe would have been a great opportunity for us to seize upon that, but that didn't happen. But certainly is something that we're going to have to address going forward. And as mentioned, baggage check-in, but I'll speak about that in a moment. In terms of time, we asked a question about processing time. The average customer right now, and keep in mind, it was probably higher than this because the results of this survey were in the first part of the year, when the latter part of the year, especially the summer peak, were much higher than this. But most customers are looking at either 1 to 3 hours in the airport, which is high, especially considering that the majority of our customers are looking for that process to be less than 1 hour. So we have a lot of work to do in order to meet what our customers' expectations are in terms of handling. And so this summer peak being what it was, and some of the challenges that existed, it's certainly something that we're going to have to work for going forward. Top areas for improvement in the passenger process. Again, I spoke about this briefly earlier. Security. It's the theater needs to stop. We definitely need to find better ways of doing treating 100% of our customers when we're searching for 1% of the trouble or the problems really does not make sense, is not fit for fit for purpose. There is a lack of standardization. You either take your belt off in some places and you don't know there's, you take your coat off in some places you don't know there's, you take your liquids out in some places you don't know there's. It really is an area that needs to be addressed, and it should be handled through the use of advanced information and through trusted travel programs and an expansion of them. And that's something that's going to have to be and will remain a key advocacy point from an industry perspective for years to come until we finally get to that promised land. Boarding, especially on jet bridge, queuing, customers, and you'll see throughout our survey, queuing is not something that our customers are akin to. They really want us to do that, avoid that as much as possible. And this certainly was more prominent this year than it has been in previous years. And as mentioned earlier, border controls is an area that looking for more automation to speed up that particular process. In terms of baggage handling, a couple of slides, and we're coming to an end. 2 and 5 have had their bags mishandled. That number now may be slightly higher than that after the summer peak, through no fault of anyone. Just some real challenges operationally, too many to name, with no one particular area to focus on. However, it's certainly an area of pain point that customers have continued to raise as an area of dissatisfaction over the course of the travel journey. Next slide. Tracking. Tracking is very important to our customers. 81%, which is up from the previous survey results, are interested in having their bags tracked. 51%, or over the majority, would like to have baggage information services available to them. And also 50% would be interested in using an electronic bag tag, which is up from where we have been before, and a unique opportunity in terms of sustainability on the reduction of paper and from a reusability standpoint, and tracking could go hand in hand with some sort of innovation in this area. So it's our customers want it, and it is key for us to work towards delivering that on their behalf. And then lastly, 30% have flown with an airline that shared their information in the last little while. So we're seeing improvements. Information is out there. Tracking is taking place, but just not to the degree that we would hope. In terms of alternative options for check-in baggage, as I'd mentioned earlier, there is a huge desire for customers to do a lot of things off airport, and I think that's going to be even more prevalent and important as we move forward, given the fact that airports just are going to be challenged from a space perspective. So if we can remove some processes from the airport, we will benefit from that. So many airlines would transfer bags from their home. This has been an ongoing request from our customers, but we haven't really been able to deliver it to any large degree. Check-in baggage at a location that's near you has been continues to rise in terms of importance, and also the willingness to separate from your bag in order for it to be delivered in advance or on a different aircraft than you is a huge jump from the previous survey results, and indicative of the chance that we have an opportunity to do things differently. And this one in particular could be a great opportunity in terms of disruption as we move forward in the process. So I think that may be okay. Maybe there's a couple more slides. In terms of improvement for the transfer experience, I think we all get frustrated by this. And when I presented on this earlier this morning, I spent quite a bit of time talking about what it's like to have to go through multiple checks from a security standpoint, multiple customs, all just on one journey, one connection. We can be better than that, and there's a lot of redundant steps that need to be removed. A couple of them are identified on this slide. Not having to pick up and recheck my bag, not having to go through security screening multiple times, and not having to go through immigration multiple times as well. This is something that we need better acceptance on, better standards across countries, like-minded nations, one-stop security, trusted travel programs, in order to allow this to be more seamless and less friction. So what are some of the solutions? I think we're going to turn it over to Louise, and Louise, you're going to take it from there. Oh, sorry, it's actually Yanik first, not Louise.
Thank you very much, Nick. And good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yanik Hoyles, and I'm the Director of Distribution. And in the scope of customer centricity, I think the simple reason why I come first is that the standards that we work on in IATA with the industry cover the shop, order, pay, or shop, book, pay in today's world. And ultimately, after that, we hand off to the airport passenger experience colleagues who will look after more the delivery, the travel component. So in the area of shop, order, pay, clearly airline retailing is a broad area that we're focusing on, which is about putting the customer at the center of this whole flow, because by doing that, by driving customer centricity, it will create value ultimately. So the focus on the customer drives value. And I say the three areas that we're exploring right now with the industry. This industry means airlines, but also the value chain players, technology providers, travel agents, and even buyers as customers. So first of all, it's about enabling the traveller to better see the value of what's on offer through lots of options, because today what we've experienced is that on their website, airlines are very, very good at being transparent and exposing what they have on offer, even some very targeted or very focused offers, but that cannot be replicated when selling through travel agents because the plumbing here is so old. So what we're trying to achieve in this area is to enable airlines to replicate what they can do on their website when selling through travel agents, so that the customer has more channels, ways to access some of this content. And with this agility, they'll be able to create even more products and make them more available, again, as well as the transparency. The second area is actually what we call payment. It's an area that's really come on the radar of the commercial teams working in tandem with their finance colleagues, because what we're seeing, there are more and more methods of payment coming up. And of course, customers, when they shop, search, and want to buy travel, they want to be able to carry out the transaction with the method of their choice. So the work we were doing in this area of payment is to work with all the partners once again to see how can we help airlines acquire more agility so they can better meet customer needs in this particular area. Finally, I would say possibly the most challenging, the most impactful area we're working on. Oh, okay. So finally, I would say the last area we're working on is what will really bring airlines closer to what true online retailing is to move away from these artifacts we have. And I'm assuming that you are familiar with the notion of what a ticket is, what a PNR is, and what an EMD, electronic miscellaneous document is. And these are artifacts that are really specific to our industry. The PNR is what you've booked. The ticket is what you paid for. And the EMD, electronic miscellaneous document, is what you've booked and paid for, but anything other than the flight. And one of the big challenges customers have, whether it be disruption or even when it's a voluntary change, it's all the reconciliation of these components. When you go to an online retailer, you have a single order. Anything you want to add, subtract, change on that order, it's all on the same document. So it's very, very clear, and it's very, very agile. So what we're trying to do is to work with the industry players to move away from these specific artifacts to a world of offers, which will be in the shopping part of the experience, to a world of orders. Again, moving closer to online retailing so that all this simplicity, agility, and the modern technology of online retailing can be applied to the airlines. This is what will enable them to really become truly customer-centric. Now, this journey is actually accelerated during COVID. And all the players across the value chain will confirm that technology, drive for digitalization, everyone sees the benefit of this journey, in this case, to airline retailing, and it has remained a priority for many of the players across the whole value chain. Now, IATA is supporting this transformation, of course, through its standard-setting activities, and the 2 or 3 areas that maybe some of you heard of are areas such as NDC, New Distribution Capability, One Order, Dynamic Offer Creation, etc., and all the required capabilities that go with that. And finally, I'd just like to stress that I've alluded to it already, that collaboration is critical for this to happen. So we continue to work, of course, with the airlines, but with all the technology providers, the travel agents, the online travel agents, the sellers, the corporate booking tools, as well as also the corporate buyer community, who are a critical customer in this process. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the standards in the area of shop, order, pay to support customer centricity. And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Louise, who's going to take the journey from there. Louise.
Thank you, Yanik. Hello, everybody. My name is Louise Cole. I'm the Global Head of Customer Experience and Facilitation in IATA. And just picking up on very similar themes than Yanik has spoke about in shop order pay and in customer retailing, is the customer experience where they interact with all the touch points in the airport environment. And what's been clear for some time is that we need to move as many of the processes we can off airport. One of the things that became very significant during COVID was the need for the provision of so much more information than ever before in order to be able to check in. And airlines needing to check a significant volume of documents of varying standards and with different information and inconsistencies. And in this, the call has come, and we have been working incredibly hard to be able to deliver not only the standards to digitalise admissibility in advance of travel, but working across in collaboration with the airlines, the governments and the airports to ensure that we can have systems where passengers can communicate what they need directly to governments in advance of their travel and receive an okay to travel from the authorities that they can then use to digitally check themselves in for their flight. We're expecting the first standards and implementation guidance to technical specifications and implementation guidance to
Thank you for your patience. We will be back shortly.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully I am back. Sorry, there's connection. I'm hopeful you can hear me.
All good. Keep going.
Okay, it looks like I'm back, so I'll pick up where I was. I'm very, very sorry for the technology difficulties that we're experiencing here today. So the second part, and it was very, very clear in the Global Passenger Survey, and in fact has been wanted for years, and there's many implementations of contactless travel, of One ID type implementations globally.
but the need for standards has always been there. All of the lessons learned over the years from the multiple implementations have formed quite a comprehensive package of work of how the digital identity technologies can be used to facilitate this contactless travel in airports without compromising the passengers' privacy of their personal data, of their biometric, and in terms of the admissibility of their passport and visa and health information when that's required for the destination that they're going to. And the aim here is to ensure that passengers are able to get to the airport in a situation where they're ready to go straight to security or straight to drop their bag and head to their gate. And we look forward to be able to deliver more in this space as we move into 2023. And now I will hand back to my colleague, Catherine. Actually, she will come and sit here. Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks, Nick. Apologies, everybody. We're having a major issue with IT here, and I think just so that it's not an inconvenient experience for you, I think we'll hold off questions. We've got some questions in the chat which we'll answer individually. Again, apologies and thanks for your tolerance and bearing with us during this. We'll be sending out the press release just shortly. And if you've got any questions or would be interested in speaking further to Nick, Yanik and Louise, then please let me know and I'll be happy to set up a one-on-one interview. Again, sorry from our side. Yeah, our hands are just a bit tied with the internet here. So thanks again for joining. Thanks to the IATA team in Geneva for your patience as well. And we'll speak soon. Thank you.
Yeah, Nick, pull the wire.